Hi, welcome to Talk About here on Shaw TV. My name is John Twigg. The show is Talk About, and the guest today is Terry Somerville. He's the proprietor of Spirit FM in Campbell River.
I guess founder, director, voice, and ministry, yeah.
And janitor and
Sometimes
promoter.
janitor, yeah, and sometimes technician.
Yeah, and sometimes the Bible student and the Bible teacher.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
the history of Spirit FM.
history. Well, back up a ways, I guess, because it's my own history too. Is I was a pastor for a long time, 27 years about. If you take my 2 years student days, and was last pastoring here at the Foursquare Church in Campbell River, and actually during those years in the 1990s, did a lot of television here, a lot of media.
I was going to get into that.
Yeah.
He's been in this studio a lot.
Yeah, and so I'm familiar with media and that sort of thing. But around 2004, 5 or something, I was having invitations overseas to travel and do ministry, and I thought, okay, it's time. Been pastoring for a long time. I'm going to step out and do some of these overseas things. So I started doing it, still do it, and I did actually a lot of traveling the first few years there. And then later 2000s, I started getting requests from Terry Fleming, who had owned a Christian radio station out in Lethbridge. Would we be interested in buying the studio assets from that station that he sold? They'd sold the license in Lethbridge to another chain, and they had the assets. So you know what? It was funny, John, because at first I turned them down. I remembered back to doing television, and we did like 300 and something programs, and I finally went, you know what? No way. I was excited, and I went, no, I can't handle the work, And he actually asked me 3 different times, and I turned him down 2 times. The third time I was going to turn him down again. Not just instant. I'll pray about it. I'll think about it.
Yeah.
And the third time, the same thing. I just said, I can't cope with this. No way. And I had God talk to me. It was just out of the blue, come very clearly in my mind. Terry, who told you have to worry about all this stuff, meaning all the things I was thinking about? And I said, okay, God, if this will be your radio station, then I'll go for it and do it. Yeah. And so we said yes. And part of the interesting part was we really didn't have the money to buy stuff or to do the engineering. You have to hire an engineer to do the applications and the broadcasting requirements. And I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff.
The CRTC jump through hoops rules.
Yeah, well, you got CRTC, and then you got Industry Canada, and your transmitter site, and your antenna, and all. It's just technical. And so he said, okay, but now how are we going to pay for it? And don't we get an anonymous donation from somewhere else in Canada, not here, nobody knows about this going on, for $22,000. Use it for anything you like. They didn't know anything about this. And this is for the ministry, Total Change Ministries, that we'd founded way back to do outreach. Yeah. And away we go, So we got the license fairly quickly. We had to do engineering applications and all that with a group in Vancouver, back and forth. And so now we have our transmitter and our antenna located on the tower behind the police station. That's 911 Commission's tower. And so they do all the 911 communication for police and fire department and ambulance, as well as some other firms that can co-locate. You rent a spot, and that's what we do. And so there we are. So we've been going to about 5 years or so, I guess. Yeah, we've been doing it.
It's kind of like Field of Dreams. Build it and they will come.
Well, yeah.
Act on faith.
It was definitely an act on faith. And for me personally, stuck my neck way out because financially it's demanding. And of course, what it does is cuts into me personally financially. Yeah. Because we depend on donations. We're not commercial. Yeah. We're a licensed as a music station, Christian contemporary music, and with some talk.
I'm just going to interject. You don't sell ads, but you do take donations.
Yeah, and we have a thank you on the air, which is nice, and sometimes maybe I think it's better than an ad actually, because people say, "Oh, they're being appreciated,"
But so I just want to back up a bit because the show you were doing in this studio, a TV show, was like the first of its kind or something, or the only one from Campbell River to go national. What's
it was called Total Change, named after the ministry. We started it in about 1990, 91. And we started taping here, did an hour, and then we went live. Within the first 6 months, we decided it was better just to go live to air. Let's just do it. And what we did was we got connected to Word Music, And they, at that time, would send broadcasting reels of music videos, which were pretty new back then, 1990s. And so we had some of the latest Christian music, but their music videos. Now remember, there's not the thing of going on YouTube and downloading them, nothing like that, right?
Yes.
So if people saw them on the TV then with us, that's the only place they'd see them.
1990, that's almost like before computers.
Well, there wasn't anything going like that in computers. You know, they were around. The editing just started to switch over to some computer systems, and but even in the offices here, no computers or anything.
Yeah.
And I was into computers a little bit myself already, but.
Yeah. But how many shows of like that did you do?
We did over 300 here over more than 10 years, and then the government of Canada did not allow Christian broadcasting stations for years, for decades. People don't know that. Like you think, well, we got religious freedom in Canada. No, we don't. No, we don't. They'd stop. You know, anytime a Christian broadcaster put in for application, they're turned down because they're religious.
Yeah.
And finally, it was coming to a head in the 1990s because it's clearly a case of discrimination. The Sikhs and those guys could get a station in Toronto because, well, it's culture. You know, but they're a religious station, but they called it culture. But if you're Christian, no, you can't. And so it came to a head, and finally the CRTC, the regulating body, relented, and they started allowing them. Well, one of the first stations off the line was in Alberta, Lethbridge, Miracle Channel. And so when they got their license and started going across Canada, they got satellite connections and all this. I phoned them up right away, and I said, "We've been doing this program out here in Campbell River. Would you be interested?" And they said, "Yes, we want it right now," you know, because they needed Canadian broadcasting.
Well, content, you know, content is king, and it's hard to get.
Yeah. Well, there was only a handful of, other than church services.
Yeah.
You know, a church would do their church service on TV and then put it on the local channel. Other than that, there was only a handful of Christian television shows being done in Canada then.
Yeah.
And we were one of them that was just local.
Yeah. Now there's handfuls of networks.
Yeah, well, there's a few, I think 3 or 4 anyway, Christian networks. But anyway, yes, we want you, they said. You know, so we at that time, digital recording was just starting.
Yeah.
And they put in a digital tape machine here, a digital deck.
Yeah.
And we started mastering onto that machine, and we did a few changes and sent the program to them.
But after 300 shows, you dropped it. What was the story?
Well, we went another 60-something shows.
Okay.
It was just getting to be too much work and too time consuming, and so I was broadcasting all that time, and so we gone like 15 years altogether, and finally, you know, it's one of those things where you say, you know, I got to move on to something else, and that was about the times I was getting the invitations to go overseas and all that. I wanted to explore
But there was
things.
a gap between the TV show in the studio and then the radio station in.
About a 5-year gap maybe. Yeah.
So that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Now, the station here in Campbell River is in Campbell River Common Mall, and that's a story too. You got a pretty good office space there.
It's really nice, and thanks to Alan Eady for that. You know, it's really good. Again, that's just, you know, once we started the station and started rolling along, we just had these things happen, these miracle things happen. You know, we needed some voices on the air, and we have a couple of great voices. One of them is Rick McConnell, and but we didn't, you know, we were gonna have to pay all this money to get, you know, the guy says things like, "You're listening to Spirit FM," you know, just that kind of stuff.
Deep radio voice.
Great radio voice, you know, and makes little stories and all this. And so what are we gonna do? Well, don't I find out about this fellow in Colorado who does this for Christian stations and puts together packages, and like a very affordable price. Normally you're paying like $20 a pop for each of those, and you know, he'd send you 40 of them for $80, so $2 a pop, you know, because he could mass them out. He was doing it for Christian stations all over North America, and just different prayer answers. We had Barry Kentner doing news. He phoned me up after we got the station started, and he said, "I met you before. I'm a retired pastor. I've met you before. Lives in Ontario." And he said, "I used to be a broadcaster, and I'm interested in doing Christian news for stations. You think you'd be interested?" And I'm going, "You're an answer to prayer," you know. So lots of stories, lots of things like that have happened, and things come together. It's amazing.
Well, people watching might not have listened to the station, and they can get it on FM here in your car, and over air 88.7 FM.
Yeah.
But they can also get it online.
That's right. Yeah.
www.spirit-fm.ca.
Yeah, people
Live
sometimes miss
streaming.
that dash in
Yeah,
there.
www.spirit-fm.ca. And where I'm going with this is like, you've got overseas listeners. I know
Yes.
because I was on the station for a while.
Yeah.
And you've got a nexus of listeners in the Philippines. I think it is.
Malaysia.
Malaysia.
Yeah, and because we stream like that, we can sometimes go in and see statistics where the listeners are. Now, mind you, it's not like if I went on there now and looked, I'd probably see a couple.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's a big
Yeah.
group coming in there or something, you know.
Yeah.
And I thought, what's going on? So I remember looking on there, and I was seeing like 64 addresses, like IPs, individual IPs of listeners in Malaysia, Penang, I think the city's name is.
Yeah.
And what? Isn't this crazy? And they were coming back all the time, and I thought, this is amazing. So finally, I started putting an ad on the radio saying, if you're listening in Malaysia, would you please send me an email?
Yeah.
I want to find out who you are. You know?
Yeah.
And eventually somebody did.
Oh, good.
And the story there was a Christian businessman from Malaysia. It's a Muslim's country,
Well, that's where I was
but they've
gonna
got
ask
freedom.
about.
You know.
Yeah, because religion in Malaysia is a very sensitive issue.
Yeah, yeah. And he was in Vancouver, and he was looking for a Christian station and found ours, even though you can't hear it on FM. It's too far away.
Yeah.
But he found us, and when he went back, he'd listen online, and then started telling people at his church and everything's about it. So it kind of spread along, you know.
Well, what would a guy like that, or a guy or woman or anybody here find on the station? What's your programming?
Well, we're licensed initially as a music station, contemporary music station, and really, unless you can spend forever doing other stuff, the music's the backbone of it.
Yeah.
And we try, you know, I'm looking for music that is kind of contemporary sounding, but will either have praise and worship of the Lord of God, of Christ, or has an edifying story in the music, you know, something like that.
Yeah.
And something that's uplifting in its message one way or another in the music. And my favorite genre, of course, is bluesy, rocky stuff. Some people don't like it, I do, so it gets in there.
He was a rock and roll guitarist as a kid.
Yeah, but there's lots of that stuff out there. It's really good. But we put on, we have a terrific country programs on for 2 hours Wednesday nights, and on twice on Sunday. You know, we have several contemporary programs. You go to the website, you can see the list of what's on. And then, but talk content-wise, my own heart is that we are a blessing to Campbell River. You know, that God wants us to say it, pray it, declare it, prophesy it, you know, not focus on bad stuff. We're focusing on not just good news of the gospel, but saying, Campbell River, God loves you. And I believe that as I not just believe it, I proved it so many times that as we're saying it and praying it, God does stuff. I mean, I could tell you stories from overseas. We were in India one time when there was a drought there during the rainy season, and there was a women's conference on, and my wife was with me, so she was one of the speakers, and I was just laying back. And so the last session, this is a couple-day conference with Bible women, which are women pastors, more or less. And you got to understand, this is like poor people from villages, and mostly it's Dalits who get saved and become Christians because they're mistreated in the caste system, you know. And so they're looking for answers. And but there was this drought on, and they were doing all kinds of stuff. The Hindu priests and the temples were doing monkey marriages, and they're trying to get rain. Nothing's happening. And so I was sharing with the women at the end, because they asked me to speak, about the love of God, God just loving India, loving that village that we're in, this town, and not being a person of critical accusation. That's not the heart of Christ, but he came to save and he came to bless. And I said, begin to speak God's love and blessing over this village. And we just started doing it. And I started leading them in prayer, and we're praying and Lord, just, you know, blessing that village. Well, I'm looking up and I see in the breezeway over here, a couple of the men that came with the staff, and they're waving at me like this. And I thought, what's going on here? And finally, I get the message. What's happened is, as we're blessing the village, the rains start. And it's, everybody's going, what on earth is happening here? And here's this rain comes down in this area where we are. but not the other areas.
That, of course, if you know the Bible, that's very scriptural. God says he makes the rain in one city, but not the other.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, in terms of Campbell River, when we started the station, we're looking here at, unemployment's up, the mill's shut, all this kind of problems, and I'm just saying, Campbell River, God loves you. We're going to pray that God will open doors for employment in Campbell River. And I would do this regularly on the air, saying, I believe it. I have faith that God's going to bless Campbell River. And I just maintained it, and I invited the listeners, do it with me. Come on. Yeah. We're going to pray for Campbell River. Well, the story is that we started hearing they're going to do the power station out here, and then they're going to do the hospital. And then the other thing we started praying for was fish. Lord, return the fish. And then what have we had?
Actually, we had a record run last year.
Yeah. And, you can say, well, of course, yes, we got the hatchery going, we got all this, and the city council, because I do city council video, I'm there all the time.
We got the aquatic science center too.
Yeah, they're out doing their part, and it's all fits in the picture. But the spiritual part, God's, that fits all this is we're just believing grace from the Lord.
Yeah.
And, I pray that people start thanking God for the good things that we have.
Where my question was going with that before he went all the way to India and back was in the morning you do a sermon. I think you pre-recorded.
15-minute.
The afternoon before.
Talk, yeah.
And then you rerun it at 5.
About 4:30 comes on, and it's on late at night too. I think 11.
Okay.
As well, just a rerun of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But so, what do you make your sermons about?
Well, that's what it'd be about. Sometimes it would be about oftentimes heart issues. Just getting in that flow of God's love and blessing. Oftentimes holiness. I'm talking very clearly about walking righteously and holy life. But oftentimes that would go into areas like, how do you speak? Like I've done message on that. Are you a critical person all the time? Or are you going to be a person that has grace to others? There's lots of things that we talk about.
Yeah. Now, one of the reasons that I had Terry on today, first of all, we had a guest who couldn't make it, and Terry, thank you for coming in on short notice.
Second fiddle.
Well, no, it's a good story. I mean, this is about my 67th show here.
Yeah.
And I've got a list of shows I'd like to do, and you were in the list.
Yeah, good.
But you've got plans to add a repeater in Courtney?
Well, let's put it there. We'd
maybe?
Like to.
Yeah, it hasn't.
There's people there that would like us to, and what we're praying is the needed finances to do that sort of thing. So, it's one of those things that if I just say, God, you want us to do it, you open the doors.
But that would be a repeater, not like a branch studio or something.
No, repeater from the local station, and one of the reasons is, of course, that redoing the whole thing is crazy. Huge work. Huge cost, whereas a repeater license is just part of your original.
Now, trends in the local churches.
Yeah.
You, because of your position and your history, you know a lot of the churches, and of course there's a pretty wide range of them in town. What do you think is happening to church attendance and interest in, I guess, theology?
I think some church attendance is definitely up.
Yeah.
There's a spiritual hunger that's awakening in Campbell River, I think, right now, but also there is a general feeling like God is going to move in some wonderful ways, do some things in the community. And what I mean by that is sometimes you go through these seasons of a spiritual awakening, so to speak, where suddenly people are experiencing the presence of God and the Spirit of God. They start to get their lives straightened out and right with God. And where things are out of order, they feel like, I've got to get things sorted out with God. My life's not right.
Yeah.
And then they also begin to experience God's goodness and grace and love, and there's things increase like healings, miracles. We've gone through a season like this at least once since I've been here in Campbell River. Quite an incredible time. And during the late 90s, mid to late 90s, like there were churches gathered together initially weekly in mass meetings here, went on for years. And just seeking God and praying for each other experience. There were so many things happened that were good.
Yeah.
There was a kind of revival that was going on.
Well, there's an interchurch ministers group too.
Ministerial, yeah.
Are they still meeting?
That's been a normal thing.
Yeah.
It's sort of a fellowship, just the ministers get together.
Yeah.
But there's that spiritual climate is hungry. And as you look into the world right now, there is such a shift in the last number of years towards, all I can say, it's ungodly, and you could go as far as talking about ISIS and the things they perpetrate against people, and but also the incredible prejudice that's rising up against Christians and Jews. Just in the West, it's quite phenomenal, and there's a lot of stories we could tell around that. But you think, what is this? It's like the demand that we as a Christian will believe alongside of those who want to move forward with their own morality that doesn't fit ours, and yet they're mad at us because we don't agree with it, and then want to shut things down. And that's it. It's like what's happening at Trinity Western University is a good example. In their case.
Unless you toe the liberal line, you lose your tax deductions.
Well, Trinity Western has got, like they're starting a legal law school, and great, they've met all the requirements for law school, this, that, and everything. Everything's there. And but because they're Christian university, what they do is they ask their students and staff, will you, sign a pledge that says that you will live an upright life, and it includes a moral statement of celibate and single, or faithful and married to the opposite sex. Well, that's triggered crazy stuff. But now what we have is Law Society of Ontario, I think it's called, rising up and saying, we're not going to allow any graduates of this university to practice law in Ontario. And you're going, what is that? And recently, I think a couple of days ago, Peter MacKay stepped up and he said, this is not right. And he's actually siding with Trinity Western University in the court battle to deal with this thing. But
well, religion and politics, it's always been a tough issue. But, recently Prime Minister Harper visited the Pope, and Harper draws Pope's attention, is the headline I've got here. But Harper got 10 minutes, and Putin got, 50 minutes? And now the Pope's coming out with a statement on climate change.
That's weird.
So I don't know what to make of all of that.
Well, I think on the Putin one, Putin's the guy that's threatening, so Harper's not. So maybe the Pope's trying to get some influence in there, I guess. I don't know. Was it the Pope that set the time?
I don't know.
Probably.
But I think it was his meeting. I guess he could. And apparently, but Putin kept him waiting for an hour. And he still met him for 50 minutes. So why did he only have 10 minutes for Harper? Is it because Harper's evangelical?
Yeah, I doubt that. I think it's just more the influence of Canada compared to Russia.
Probably, We're running out of time already.
And there's so many things that'd be great to talk about.
Well, I wanted to toss this in. The Vancouver Province, Tom Harrison, had an article about Terry Jacks enters a brand new season. Now, maybe some people watching know Terry Jacks is the guy that wrote Seasons in the Sun. Well, it was
you have to be our age, probably.
But it was a huge hit, and the guy lived a very comfortable life ever since. And he's from Vancouver, and he's still from Vancouver. But he's coming out with a new CD. And his current project, a Christian pop called Fisher of Men.
Wow.
And then also in the Times columnist, Adrian Chamberlain, recently a little profile of the Oak Ridge Boys. While they have a Christian background, but they too are coming out with Rock of Ages, the group's first all-hymn collection.
Wow.
So,
well, you know what, John, you get some of these guys that were the rockers that I loved back when I was playing in the clubs and stuff. And then you find out later they either were Christians at the time, like Creedence Clearwater Revival. He's and the words in those songs, some of those original words are Christian lyrics, and they were just huge, and we didn't know it, you know. And then Kerry Livgren,
tonight, going to be tonight.
Going
to get
to revival
religion all night long.
Mary's going to get religion, Kansas, Kerry Livgren, who's a guitar player, songwriter, he's strong. He's put out all kinds of Christian albums, but he says "Carry On My Wayward Son" was his calling out to God song. That's what he says in his testimony. And you get what's his name, who's called Alice Cooper. who's actually a preacher.
Yeah.
You know, and
And
he's
yet his stage act is, biting the head off of a.
yeah, was
Yeah.
you know, and he still does some of the Cooper stuff because that's where he gets the attention. Then he can talk about Christ. You know, and I could go on. There's lots of
so,
these guys.
so could I. The Beatles, the word is John 1.
Yeah,
And Bob Dylan, Blowing in the Wind is John 3.
Yeah.
And like I used to do the Holy Spirit Rock Show on the radio station.
Yeah.
And there are hundreds of pop songs that you don't really think of as being Bible-based.
Yeah.
But
Blues
they are.
guitarist Bonnie Raitt.
Yeah.
You know, is a Christian. She put out a Christian album. You know, it's just great stuff.
Yeah.
And we have some of it on the air.
Yeah.
On Christian
But you're not
Spirit
playing
FM.
a lot of that right now. I don't think.
It gets on there, you know, it's in the mix.
Yeah.
Let's put it on. I could do
Steve
feature
Miller's
shows.
another one. Gotta
Yeah,
Be
he's on
Rock
there
Love.
too.
Yeah, it's good. Is there something I haven't asked that you want to toss in?
No, it's good. Oh,
Okay.
future plans, I don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know where it goes from here, you know. It's like, what can I say? If you walk with God, you end up doing things you didn't expect.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing only what you expect, then you're just walking with yourself. That's the best thing I guess.
Yeah.
And
Well-
it's been like that a lot. I never thought ever and had no interest in doing radio station. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
And
But it
and yet here
reaches
we are
people.
doing it. It reaches people, and here I am doing it. And you know, it goes on. And one of my thoughts now is I'd like to put together a Christian blues rock band
Oh, good.
and do events. Not so much the worship band, but do events.
Huh.
And locally and stuff, and do that as part of Spirit FM. But you know, that's the way I used to play. Let's do the Christian music that's
But
like that. It's
you
good
got
stuff.
another 2 years on your radio license and,
Yeah.
and another 2 years in the lease on the mall?
Yeah. Well, we have a nice arrangement because we're a charity. We can work the same way as the seniors did
Yeah.
with them, and it's been good. It's been great.
Well, we got about 2 minutes left, and my thing and why I was so glad that Terry came on is the world news, to my mind, is getting worse.
Yep.
And it's like, well, when is the Armageddon going to come true?
Yeah.
And I
There's a
would
lot
think,
of things lining up that are really
Yeah,
quite. That's a whole other show.
but yes, definitely. But like world religiosity is not rising in step, and
Yeah,
I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would be natural that it would, but it doesn't seem to be.
I believe right now there is in the background push to move towards having a world government and a world economy.
Yeah, very much.
And the real thing, if you dig under climate change behind a lot of the rhetoric and about,
New World
stuff
Order.
like that, what you find out is the big bodies around this thing are wanting to take control of economies.
Yeah.
And they've even had it in some of their agreements that were exposed before the agreement. That's why some of the agreements didn't get signed, because these texts inside the agreement came out.
The TPP is being done without people knowing what's in it.
Yeah, and
But we got
what they involve there is government signing away their sovereignty in order to meet the emergency of the day.
Yeah.
And
Jobs
this kind of stuff.
versus the economy.
Yeah,
Jobs
and,
versus the environment.
There's a
It's
lot
okay.
of weird stuff around this, and it's worth keeping an eye on.
Yeah.
And,
Well, Terry, thank you very much for coming in and doing this. Best wishes with Spirit FM. I hope you get the Courtney thing, and I hope you, whatever.
we'll see what happens.
So just a reminder, if you want to listen, it's 88.7 FM, but online as well, www.spirit-fm.ca. So thank you very much. Now, I just want to close the station mentioning that Transformations on the Shore, the Shoreline Arts Society, is starting on June 24. I'd hoped to have them on, but we couldn't work it out. But that's a great event here in the Willow Point area too. So there's Talk About. Thank you very much, volunteers, for doing this, and a shout out to Richard Rosell. Got it right. It's his last show today. Thanks, Richard. Thank you, Matt and Laura and Valerie. So, and thank you, Shaw, too, for putting on Talk About. If you'd like to watch this or any other show that we've done, go to Google Shaw TV North Island, and you'll find all of these shows there, too. So, thanks for watching.